Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're taking on Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz.
Oh, that's a classic. Published all the way back in 1959. Think about that.
It's amazing, right? And get this, over 6 million copies sold. That's got to tell you something about its staying power.
It really does. The book's still so relevant today. You know what I find really interesting? It's how Schwartz manages to blend those really inspiring stories with practical advice. Stuff you can actually use.
Totally. And that's our mission today, to dig out those golden nuggets from thinking big and see how we can apply them in our own lives.
Absolutely. Let's kick things off with one of the book's core ideas, the power of belief.
Okay, so why is belief so crucial? What's the big deal with believing in yourself?
Well, Schwartz is really adamant about this. If you don't believe you can succeed, you're already setting yourself up for failure. It's like you're holding yourself back before you even start.
It's almost like self-sabotage, right? But Schwartz doesn't just tell us to believe. He backs it up with some incredible stories.
He does, like the one about Harry, this average guy who achieved amazing success.
Yeah, I remember Harry. What was his secret? Was he just lucky?
Not at all. Harry's secret was that he thought bigger than everyone else. He aimed 5 times higher than his peers, and that made all the difference.
5 times bigger. Wow, that's a huge leap. What did that even look like for him practically?
Well, it wasn't about some overnight miracle. He wanted to lead a major division of his company, something no one, not even himself, thought was possible. But he started acting as if he was already in that role.
So he kind of faked it until he made it.
Kind of, but it was more about embodying that future success. He started taking on more responsibility, seeking out mentors, learning new skills.
He made it real in his mind, and then his actions followed.
Exactly. And that's something we can all do, whatever our goals are. It's about stepping into the mindset and behaviors of the person we want to become.
That's so powerful. It's like you're already living that success even before it fully materializes. Reminds me of other stories Schwartz shares. The one about the tool and die maker.
Oh yeah, that one's a real gem. He had a good life, a loving family, a steady job, but something was missing.
That feeling of being stuck,
Yeah.
like you're meant for more.
Yeah, exactly. And his transformation was incredible. He went from feeling trapped to building a beautiful new home, providing for his children's education, even taking his family on a dream trip to Europe.
Wow, that's a major turnaround. But what was the catalyst for that change? How did he shift his belief?
It all started with a simple question he asked himself every single day. What can I do today to become more successful?
So he didn't just passively wish for a better life. He actively sought ways to create it.
Exactly. He started by looking for opportunities he'd previously overlooked, took on extra projects, learned new skills, even started a side hustle.
So it was about taking action, stepping out of his comfort zone.
Absolutely. He went from feeling powerless to taking control of his future, just by changing his belief and then backing it up with action.
It's like that old saying, believe you can and you're halfway there.
Right. But sometimes, even when we want to believe, there's this sneaky voice in our heads holding us back. Schwartz calls it excusitis.
Excusitis. Sounds serious. What is that exactly?
It is serious. It's like a mental disease that prevents people from reaching their full potential. They make excuses for their failures instead of taking responsibility.
So instead of saying, I can't do this, it's more like, I can't do this because.
You got it. And their reasons can range from health issues to lack of education, their age, even bad luck. They become masters at justifying their inaction.
It sounds like there are different types of this excusitis.
You're right. Schwartz outlined several types. Health excusitis, intelligence excusitis, age excusitis, the list goes on. And he brings them to life with real-life examples.
What example really sticks out to you, the one that really drives the point home?
The one about the 2 people with diabetes, both facing the same challenge, but with completely different outcomes.
One let the disease control his life. The other one thrived despite it.
Exactly. It all came down to mindset. The one who thrived focused on what he could control. He chose a positive attitude, even saw insulin as a miracle that allowed him to live fully.
He didn't let his condition define him.
Nope. He saw possibility instead of limitation.
That's inspiring. It shows how much power our mindset really has. But what about those who fall into the trap of intelligence excusitis? What's their story?
Schwartz talks about this incredibly intelligent man who used his intellect as a weapon against himself.
How so? Was he overthinking everything?
Yeah, instead of finding solutions, he became a master at rationalizing his failures. He could always explain why things wouldn't work, why he couldn't succeed.
It's like he outsmarted himself right out of success.
It is. And Schwartz emphasizes that stickability and a can-do attitude are far more crucial for success than just raw intelligence.
It's not enough to just be smart. You have to be willing to put in the work and persevere.
Exactly. You can be the brightest person in the room, but if you can't follow through, you won't achieve much.
So for our listeners who might be wrestling with excusitis, what's the first step to breaking free?
Well, the key is awareness. Once you recognize your excuse patterns, whether it's health, age, intelligence, whatever, you can start challenging them. And remember, you don't have to live to be sick. You can choose to live to enjoy your work and have fun, regardless of your physical condition. And for intelligence excusitis, remember, high IQ doesn't equal automatic success. Use that brain power to find ways to win, to innovate, to stick with it.
So we've talked about the power of belief and the danger of excusitis. Now let's get to the heart of it. What does it actually mean to think big?
Thinking big is about adopting a mindset that sees possibilities instead of limitations. It's about believing in your potential and taking concrete steps to make those dreams happen.
It's about ditching that I can't mentality and replacing it with how can I?
Exactly. And there's this great story about a young man who really wanted to go back to school but thought it was completely impossible because of family responsibilities.
That feeling of being stuck, like circumstances are dictating your life.
Right. But he made a simple shift in his thinking. Instead of repeating it's impossible, he started asking, how can I make this happen?
And that opened up new possibilities.
It did. That simple change in perspective led him to a solution where he could pursue his education and support his family at the same time.
It was about challenging those limiting beliefs and finding a creative workaround.
Exactly. Our beliefs shape our reality. When we tell ourselves something's impossible, we close ourselves off to potential solutions.
That's a great point. It reminds me of another example, the successful retailer who attributes her success to her weekly improvement program.
Oh, yes. That one's so inspiring. Every week, she'd ask herself, what can I do to improve?
So she was always looking for ways to level up her game, to be better than she was the week before.
Exactly. It was like having this built-in growth mindset. She went from one successful store to owning 4 thriving businesses.
Wow. Talk about thinking big. But is there a link between thinking big and creative thinking? Are they two sides of the same coin?
That's a great question. And Schwartz actually addresses this directly. He challenges the idea that creativity is only for artists or inventors. He believes it's essential for success in any field.
So it's not just about painting a masterpiece or writing a symphony.
Right. It's about problem-solving innovation, even improving our relationships. It's a way of approaching life.
And he uses this really interesting exercise to illustrate this point, the jail elimination exercise.
Ah, yes. That's a classic. He presents this seemingly impossible task to a group of people, figure out how to eliminate jail.
That sounds like a real head-scratcher.
It is. And at first, everyone gets stuck on the why we can't.
It's impractical, dangerous, impossible.
Exactly. But then Schwartz shifts the focus. He challenges them to think about how we can. And that's when the magic happens.
So it's about reframing the problem, looking for solutions instead of getting stuck in the limitations.
Exactly. Instead of roadblocks, they start seeing possibilities. They brainstorm solutions, crime prevention rehabilitation programs, addressing the root causes of criminal behavior.
The creativity just starts flowing.
It does. It's a powerful demonstration of how a simple shift in perspective can unlock creative thinking.
So it's not about magic. It's about asking the right questions and being open to new possibilities.
And that leads us to another powerful technique Schwartz talks about, listening and learning from others. He believes that truly listening is an active process, not just passively hearing words.
It's about really absorbing what the other person is saying, trying to see things from their perspective.
Exactly. It's about engaging with their ideas, asking questions, probing deeper, and trying to understand their point of view.
It's like stepping outside of your own limited perspective and opening yourself up to a whole new world of ideas.
Precisely. And that brings us to another powerful concept Schwartz talks about, managed solitude.
Managed solitude. What's that all about?
It's about intentionally carving out time for quiet reflection and contemplation. Successful people, according to Schwartz, make a deliberate effort to create those pockets of quiet time.
So it's like hitting the pause button on the world for a while, giving your mind a break from the constant stimulation.
Exactly. And it's during those quiet moments that our subconscious minds can really get to work.
Solving problems, generating new ideas, connecting the dots.
It's like giving your mind the space and freedom it needs to really thrive.
I love that. But wouldn't too much solitude lead to isolation? Don't you need interaction to spark creativity?
It's all about finding that balance-managed solitude is about intentionally creating space for your mind to work behind the scenes. It's a mental reset.
It sounds like a key strategy for unlocking creative potential. But how do you actually make it work in real life? It's not like we can all just drop everything and meditate for hours.
You don't have to. Even small pockets of quiet time can make a big difference. Find a quiet spot for 15 minutes. Disconnect from the world. Let your mind wander, reflect, relax. Just breathe. You'd be surprised what comes up when you give your mind that space.
It's about creating that space for those aha moments to emerge and making it a consistent practice, not just a one-time thing.
Exactly. Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about leadership. Schwartz believes that true leadership goes beyond technical skills or expertise. It's about connecting with people on a human level.
It's about building relationships, inspiring others, creating a positive and supportive environment.
Right. He talks about the concept of being human and uses the story of John S., an executive who really mastered this approach to illustrate his point.
What made John S. such a remarkable leader? What set him apart?
Well, he understood that people thrive when they feel valued and respected. He went above and beyond to create a positive work environment.
Can you give an example?
Sure. When a new employee joined his team from another city, John personally helped him find housing. He even organized a welcome dinner with colleagues to help him feel at home.
He didn't just delegate that to someone else. He got personally involved.
Exactly. And he treated everyone with dignity, regardless of their position.
That kind of respect creates a ripple effect, doesn't it? When people feel valued, they're more likely to go the extra mile.
Absolutely. John S. was also a master at praising and recognizing his team's contributions. He knew how to make people feel seen and appreciated.
It's all about that human touch, isn't it?
It is. So being human as a leader is about respect, recognition, and creating an environment where everyone feels valued.
That's a powerful model for anyone in a leadership position, or even aspiring to be one. Now, I'm curious about this idea of becoming a progressive thinker. It sounds like it's about moving beyond individual success to a wider perspective on growth and development.
You're spot on. Schwartz draws a clear distinction between status quoers and progressives.
So status quoers are those who resist change, who like things to stay the same.
Right. They're the if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Crowd progressives, on the other hand, are always looking for ways to improve, to innovate, to push boundaries.
They embrace change as an opportunity.
Exactly. They see the world as a work in progress and themselves as agents of positive change. They're the ones who drive progress and make things happen.
So how do we become more like the progressives? How do we break out of that status quo mindset?
Schwartz encourages us to join the ranks of the progressive thinkers, to become part of the leadership elite who drive progress and make a real impact.
He uses a great example to illustrate this point. The story of the 3 salesmen being considered for a promotion to sales manager.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. 2 of the salesmen were content with the way things were. They didn't see the need for improvement.
They were comfortable with the status quo.
Exactly. But the 3rd salesman was different. He was full of ideas for improvement.
He had that think big mentality.
He did. He saw the potential for growth and was eager to implement changes that would benefit everyone, not just himself.
So he stood out because he was a progressive thinker.
Yes. And, unsurprisingly, he was the one who got the promotion.
It shows that embracing change and striving for improvement are essential qualities for leadership.
Absolutely. And Schwartz provides a checklist for assessing our own progressive thinking habits.
So we can evaluate where we stand and identify areas for growth.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we're all works in progress and there's always room for improvement.
Welcome back to our deep dive into thinking big. We left off talking about those progressive thinkers, the folks who drive progress and embrace change. But how do we actually translate those big ideas into daily actions?
That's the million-dollar question, right? The good news is Schwartz doesn't just leave us hanging with these abstract concepts. He gives us practical strategies to bridge that gap between thinking and doing.
That's what we need. Actionable advice we could actually use.
Right. One of the most powerful ideas is this. Capacity is a state of mind.
Wait, so you're saying we're not limited by our current capacity, but we can actually expand it just by changing our thinking?
Exactly. It's about pushing past those self-imposed limitations. He tells a story about a woman who was suddenly thrown into a super demanding situation. Her husband was seriously injured, and she had to handle everything, the household, the kids, her job. It would have been easy to just crumble under that pressure.
Oh, wow. I can't even imagine. Most people would feel completely overwhelmed.
Right. But she made a conscious decision to not let it defeat her. Instead of getting stuck in that "I can't" mentality, she focused on "how can I?" She got organized, streamlined her tasks, learned to delegate, and she found strength she didn't even know she had.
So she basically reprogrammed her mind to handle a much bigger load than she thought possible.
That's it. And this principle applies to all of us, no matter what we're trying to achieve. If we want to do more, we need to ask ourselves, how can I do more? Instead of, why can't I?
It's about stretching our capacity, pushing ourselves beyond what we think we're capable of.
Absolutely. But I know what you're thinking. Isn't there a risk of burnout? We can't just keep pushing ourselves without taking a break.
Exactly. There are only so many hours in a day.
Right. And that's where time management comes in, which is another key concept Schwartz dives into. He actually makes this interesting point, that the busiest people are often the most productive.
Really? I would have thought that someone with tons of free time would get more done.
You'd think so, right? But Schwartz's argument is that truly busy people have mastered the art of prioritizing and managing their time effectively. They're also more likely to be engaged and motivated because they're constantly working towards their goals.
So it's not about just being busy for the sake of being busy. It's about being purposeful with your time, making sure your actions are aligned with your goals.
Exactly. And remember, progress happens one step at a time. Big goals aren't achieved overnight. It's all those small, consistent actions that add up to something significant.
It's about breaking down those big, audacious dreams into bite-sized pieces that you can tackle each day. Speaking of breaking things down, let's go back to creative thinking for a minute. We talked about the jail elimination exercise earlier.
Yeah.
Are there other ways to unlock that creative power?
Definitely. One of the most powerful techniques, according to Schwartz, is to listen and learn from others. He sees listening as a critical skill for success, not just a passive activity.
I can see that. When you really listen to someone, you open yourself up to their perspectives, their experiences, their unique ways of seeing the world.
Exactly. It's about actively engaging with their ideas, asking questions, trying to understand their point of view, even if it's different from your own.
It's like stepping into their mental shoes for a moment.
It is. It can be incredibly valuable for problem solving and innovation. But even when we're open to new ideas, sometimes we get stuck in our own heads. We overthink things, and that inner critic starts to creep in.
That voice of doubt can be so loud sometimes. How do we quiet that inner critic and tap into our creative potential?
That's where managed solitude comes in. Remember we talked about that earlier?
Yeah, it's about creating space for quiet reflection.
Right. It's about disconnecting from all the noise and stimulation of the world and giving our minds the freedom to wander.
It's like pressing the pause button on your brain for a while.
Exactly. And it's often during those moments of quiet contemplation that those aha moments happen.
Those flashes of insight and inspiration.
Yes. So don't underestimate the power of solitude. But I know what you're thinking. How do you fit that into a busy schedule? It's not like we can all just drop everything and meditate for hours on end.
Exactly. Real life doesn't always allow for that.
You don't need hours. Even 15 minutes a day can make a difference. Find a quiet space, disconnect from all your devices, and just let your mind wander. You might be surprised at what comes up.
It's like hitting the reset button on your mind.
Wow.
I love that. Now, thinking back to all the stories and examples Schwartz uses, one thing that really stood out to me was his emphasis on preparation. He seems to believe that success isn't just about talent or luck. It's about being ready for your moment.
He's a huge believer in planning and preparation. He talks about public speaking, for example, something that terrifies a lot of people. He says much of that fear comes from getting bogged down in those little details, worrying about your posture, your grammar, whether your tie is straight.
So they're so focused on the small stuff that they lose sight of the bigger picture.
Exactly. And that fear can really take over. Schwartz suggests a different approach. Focus on the big things, having something valuable to say, and a genuine desire to share it with others.
So it's about connecting with your message, believing in its importance, and letting that passion come through.
Right. When you're genuinely excited about what you're sharing, those little details don't matter as much.
It's about letting your enthusiasm carry you through, even if you make a mistake or two.
Exactly. And he reminds us that even the most experienced public speakers aren't perfect. It's not about flawless delivery. It's about authenticity and connection.
And that applies to so many areas of life, not just public speaking. It's about focusing on the big picture, the heart of the matter, and not getting sidetracked by those little distractions.
He has this great term for those distractions, details. And he gives this funny example of salespeople who, after losing a sale, go back to their manager and say, well, at least I proved the customer wrong. They missed the point entirely.
They won the argument, but lost the sale. That's a classic case of getting sidetracked by ego and losing sight of the goal.
It is, and Schwartz argues that this applies to everything. Sales relationships, leadership, identify the big objective, and stay focused on it.
Don't get lost in the weeds.
Right. And he tells this hilarious story to drive this point home. It's about the sales executive who had a friend who loved playing practical jokes.
Oh no, I have a feeling this is going to be good.
It is. So this friend sends a young man with the severe speech impediment to apply for a sales job. Knowing the executive is looking to hire, it was a pretty mean trick.
Wow, that's harsh. So did the executive fall for it?
Not at all. He was so impressed by the young man's enthusiasm, his knowledge, his passion for the product, that he hired him on the spot, despite the speech impediment.
He saw past the surface and recognized the real potential. That's amazing.
It is. It shows how powerful it can be to focus on the big picture. Sometimes what we perceive as weaknesses or limitations are completely irrelevant if someone has those truly important qualities.
It's about seeing the whole person, not just a single flaw.
Exactly. It's about recognizing potential, both in ourselves and others. But how do you avoid getting bogged down in those trivial details in the first place? It's so easy to get caught up in the small stuff.
It is. Our minds tend to wander. How do we stay focused?
Schwartz has this simple but powerful tool. Ask yourself, is this really important? Before you get worked up about something, take a moment to pause and consider whether it's truly worth your time and energy.
It's like a mental filter for distractions.
Right. It helps you stay focused on what truly matters. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about our environment. How much control do we really have over our surroundings, especially when it comes to things like work or family?
That's a great question. It feels like sometimes our environment dictates our mood, our energy, even our behavior.
Schwartz is a big believer in the power of our environment to shape our thoughts and behaviors. He compares our minds to gardens, what we plant in those gardens, the thoughts we cultivate, the information we consume, the people we surround ourselves with. All of that determines what we harvest in our lives.
So it's about being mindful of the inputs we allow into our minds, both positive and negative.
Exactly. He talks about the importance of surrounding ourselves with positive, success-oriented people. And he cautions against spending time with negative people, the complainers, the ones who always focus on limitations. He calls it thought poison.
It's like their negativity is contagious.
It can be. We've all been around those energy vampires. And it's not just about the people in our lives, it's also about the media we consume, the conversations we have, even the physical spaces we inhabit.
So our environment includes both the physical and the psychological.
Precisely. He encourages us to create spaces that inspire us, that are clean and organized, that reflect our values. And on the psychological side, it's about being mindful of the information we consume, the self-talk we engage in. It's about creating a mental environment that supports our growth.
So what about those negative people we can't avoid? The ones who shoot down your ideas before you even get started? How do you deal with them?
Schwartz calls those people negators. They're like dream crushers. They thrive on negativity and doubt.
It's like they want to keep everyone else small and safe, just like them.
Exactly. And his advice is brilliant. Don't fight them. Engaging with them only drags you down to their level. Instead, see them as wounded individuals who need compassion, not anger.
It's about rising above their negativity.
Yeah.
Not letting them steal your joy.
Exactly. In fact, he even suggests that sometimes being criticized means you're on the right track. It means you're growing, you're pushing boundaries, and those negators feel threatened by your progress.
Interesting. Now, another concept that really resonated with me was this idea of cultivating a you are important attitude.
That's such a powerful idea. It's about recognizing your own value and worth, regardless of what others might say or think.
It's about self-respect and believing in your potential.
He compares it to a magic bank.
Yeah.
The more you deposit into this bank through acts of kindness, generosity, service to others, the richer you become.
It's like an investment in your own self-worth.
Exactly. And he also talks about uplifting self-praise. It's not about being arrogant. It's about acknowledging your strengths and accomplishments.
It's about celebrating your wins.
Yes. He suggests creating a 60-second commercial for yourself, highlighting your best qualities and achievement. It's a great way to boost your confidence and remind yourself of your value.
It's like your own personal pep talk.
Exactly. Now, this you are important attitude also extends to building a positive image, projecting qualities that inspire trust and respect in others.
So it's about walking the talk.
Yeah.
Letting your actions speak louder than words.
Right. He suggests focusing on qualities like integrity, kindness, generosity, a strong work ethic. These are the foundations of a strong character.
It's about being the kind of person people want to be around, to work with, to collaborate with.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about something that can be a real obstacle to thinking big. Fear. It can be paralyzing.
I think everyone struggles with fear on some level. It's part of being human.
It is. But the key is to not let fear control us. Schwartz's advice is simple. Act. The more we act, the less we fear.
It's like ripping off the Band-Aid. Just go for it.
Right. He reminds us that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it.
It's about acknowledging the fear, but choosing to move forward anyway.
He tells a story about a young man who was terrified of public speaking, completely petrified.
Public speaking can be so intimidating. What did he do to overcome that fear?
Schwartz encouraged him to focus on his message, to act as if he was confident and in control. And you know what? It worked. He gave a powerful, engaging speech.
That's amazing. It proves that our thoughts really can shape our reality.
They do. If we dwell on fear, it will paralyze us. But if we choose to focus on courage, we can accomplish incredible things.
Now, what about criticism? That can be tough to handle, especially when it feels personal or unfair.
It can be. But Schwartz encourages us to see criticism as an opportunity to learn, even the tough kind.
It's about not taking it personally and instead asking, is there any truth to this?
Exactly. Sometimes even the most painful criticism can contain a valuable lesson. He also encourages us to actively seek out constructive criticism from people we trust.
So surround yourself with people who will be honest with you, even if it's not always easy to hear.
Right. But remember, not all criticism is created equal. Some is helpful. Some is just meant to tear you down.
It's about being able to discern the difference.
Yes. And when you're faced with unjust criticism, he suggests a great tactic. Turn the tables.
Turn the tables. How do you do that?
Ask the critic for specific suggestions for improvement. It often catches them off guard and forces them to either back down or offer some actual helpful advice.
That's a clever way to shift the power dynamic.
It is. Now, let's talk about something that might seem obvious, but is often overlooked. Learning to like people.
That sounds like the foundation of good relationships.
It is, and Schwartz believes it's crucial for success.
Mm-hmm.
He offers this simple but profound piece of advice. To like people, act as if you like them.
So it's about taking action first, even if your feelings don't necessarily align at first.
Exactly. He believes that our actions can influence our feelings. By acting as if we like someone, we might actually start to develop genuine feelings of liking.
It's like fake it till you make it for relationships.
Kind of. He also suggests making a list of people you admire and identifying the qualities that make them likable.
So it's about observing, learning, and consciously cultivating those positive traits in ourselves.
It is. It's a great exercise for personal growth. And it all comes down to shifting our focus from ourselves to others. Being genuinely interested in other people can be one of the most attractive qualities.
It's about making those connections, building those bridges.
And that leads us to another important piece, thinking right towards people. It's about having a positive and constructive approach to our interactions.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel respected and valued.
Exactly. Schwartz reminds us that we can't force people to like us, but we can create conditions where they're more likely to respond positively.
So how do we think right towards others? What are some practical things we can do?
He suggests things like being genuinely interested in others, listening attentively, being generous with praise, making people feel important.
Those are all about treating others with respect and kindness.
Right. And remember, relationships are a two-way street. It's about giving and receiving, supporting and being supported.
It's about showing up for each other.
He also emphasizes the importance of forgiveness. Holding on to grudges only hurts us in the end.
It's like that saying, holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Exactly. Forgiveness is about freeing ourselves.
Yeah.
And speaking of positive relationships, Schwartz also talks about the power of believing in people. He argues that when we believe in someone, we inspire them to live up to their potential.
It's like we're giving them permission to shine.
Right. He shares this story about a young man who was on the verge of dropping out of school.
Oh, no. That's so sad.
But a teacher who believed in him turned things around. She saw his potential, even when he couldn't see it himself. And her belief inspired him to stay in school and pursue his dreams.
That's a beautiful story. It shows how powerful a little bit of encouragement can be.
It is. We all have the power to make a difference in someone's life, just by believing in them.
Now, along those same lines, Schwartz also talks about the importance of thinking and talking positively.
He's a big believer in the power of our words to shape our reality.
It's like that saying, change your thoughts, change your life.
Exactly. If we want to attract success, happiness, abundance, We need to start by using language that reflects those desires.
So it's about being mindful of our self-talk and choosing words that empower us.
Right. He suggests things like replacing negative self-talk with positive affirmations, making a list of your accomplishments and reviewing it regularly. It's about building a positive self-image.
It's about creating a mental highlight reel of all your wins.
Exactly. And he also emphasizes the power of visualization.
That's where you create a mental picture of yourself achieving your goals.
Right. Right. It's about seeing it, feeling it, believing it.
Our minds are powerful tools.
They are. What we focus on expands. If we focus on success, we're more likely to achieve it. But it's important to remember that success isn't a destination. It's a journey.
It's about enjoying the process, celebrating those small wins,
Yeah.
and constantly striving to be better.
And it's about cultivating an attitude of gratitude, appreciating all the good things in our lives, focusing on the abundance that already surrounds us.
It's about shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset.
Exactly. Now, let's get practical for a minute. One thing that always seems to trip people up is time management. There never seem to be enough hours in the day.
It's a constant struggle. How do we make the most of the time we have?
Schwartz sees time as our most valuable resource, something to be treated with care and intention.
It's about being mindful of how we spend our time and making choices that align with our goals.
He suggests creating a schedule and sticking to it as much as possible. He also reminds us that it's okay to say no to commitments that don't serve us or align with our goals.
Setting boundaries is so important.
It is. It's about protecting your time and energy, making sure you're investing them in the things that truly matter.
Okay, so let's talk about building strong relationships. We touched on this earlier, but it's such a crucial aspect of thinking big.
It is. Schwartz emphasizes the importance of connecting with people on a human level, building trust, creating win-win situations.
It's not about using people. It's about collaboration and mutual benefit.
Exactly. He offers several suggestions for strengthening relationships, like being genuinely interested in others, listening attentively, being generous with praise and appreciation. Remember, relationships are a two-way street.
It's about giving and receiving, supporting and being supported.
Right. It's about showing up for each other. Now, let's talk about effective communication, something we all struggle with from time to time.
Communication breakdowns can be so frustrating, and they can lead to all sorts of problems.
Schwartz argues that clear communication is essential for success in any field. It's about being understood and being able to convey your message in a way that resonates with others.
It's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it.
Right. He encourages us to be mindful of not only our words, but also our tone of voice and body language.
It's about sending a consistent message, verbally and non-verbally.
Exactly. He also suggests practicing active listening, which involves really paying attention to what the other person is saying, asking clarifying questions, and reflecting back what you've heard to ensure understanding.
It's about showing the other person that you're truly engaged and that you value their perspective.
Right. And he also emphasizes the importance of being assertive, expressing your needs and opinions clearly and respectfully, while also being open to the other person's point of view. It's about finding that balance between being direct and being respectful.
It's about standing up for yourself without steamrolling over others.
Exactly. Now let's bring it back to a theme that runs throughout Thinking Big: cultivating a positive attitude. It's a choice we make every day.
It's about choosing to focus on the positive even when things are tough.
He encourages us to develop an I can attitude, believing in ourselves, focusing on solutions, and approaching challenges with optimism and determination.
It's like that classic saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't.
Yeah, exactly. Our thoughts really do create our reality. If we want to attract success, happiness, and abundance, we need to cultivate a positive mindset. And a big part of that is practicing gratitude, appreciating the good things in our lives, focusing on the abundance that surrounds us, and letting go of that scarcity mentality.
It's about shifting your perspective and recognizing all the good that's already present.
Right. He reminds us that a grateful heart attracts more blessings. Now, it's one thing to talk about having a positive attitude, but how do we actually put it into action?
It's easy to get caught up in negative thinking patterns.
It is. That's where action comes in. Schwartz argues that action is the key to unlocking our potential. It's not enough to just dream big. We need to take concrete steps to make those dreams a reality.
It's about getting out of our heads and into the world, making things happen.
Exactly. He encourages us to set goals, break them down into manageable steps, and then take action consistently, even when we don't feel like it.
It's about developing that bias for action. Just get started,
Yeah.
even if it's just a small step.
Right. But we all know that even the most motivated people encounter setbacks. Life throws us curveballs.
It's inevitable. So how do we stay positive and resilient in the face of those challenges?
Schwartz acknowledges that setbacks are a part of life. Things don't always go as planned, but he encourages us to view setbacks as opportunities for growth and learning.
It's about reframing failure as feedback.
Exactly. He suggests asking ourselves, what can I learn from this experience?
Even the most difficult experiences can teach us valuable lessons.
They can. He reminds us that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the journey.
It's about getting back up and trying again, wiser and stronger than before.
And when you're feeling defeated, remember the power of gratitude.
That's about focusing on the good things, even when it feels like everything is going wrong.
Right. He suggests making a list of things you're grateful for and reviewing it regularly. It's a powerful way to shift your perspective and appreciate the abundance that surrounds you.
It's about counting your blessings, no matter how small they may seem.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about purpose. Schwartz believes that having a strong sense of purpose is essential for a fulfilling life.
It's about knowing why you're here, what your unique contribution to the world is.
He encourages us to take time to reflect on our values, identify the things that truly matter to us, and live a life that's aligned with that purpose.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your passions, your talents, and the needs of the world intersect.
Exactly. And when our lives are aligned with our purpose, we feel more fulfilled, more motivated, more resilient.
It's like having a guiding star.
Sure.
Now, finding your purpose can be a daunting task. Where do you even begin?
It starts with self-reflection. Ask yourself, what am I passionate about? What are my strengths? What kind of impact do I want to make on the world?
Those are great questions to ponder. It's about listening to your inner voice,
Yeah.
trusting your intuition.
Exactly. Now let's come back to this idea of time management for a moment. We touched on it earlier, but it's so important that it bears repeating.
Time is our most valuable resource.
Yeah.
And yet we often waste it on things that don't matter.
Schwartz encourages us to be intentional with our time, to create a schedule and stick to it as much as possible, to delegate tasks that can be done by others, and to say no to commitments that don't serve us.
It's about being strategic and protective of our time, making sure we're investing it wisely.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about relationships. We've already discussed the importance of thinking right towards others. But how do we actually build strong, positive relationships?
It's about more than just being nice, isn't it?
It is. It's about genuine connection and mutual respect. Schwartz reminds us that relationships are a two-way street. They require effort and commitment from both sides.
It's about being there for each other, through thick and thin.
Right. And let's not forget about effective communication. It's so crucial for healthy relationships, both personal and professional.
Miscommunication can lead to so many misunderstandings and conflicts.
Schwartz emphasizes the importance of clear communication, being mindful of our words, our tone of voice, our body language, and practicing active listening.
It's about really hearing and understanding what the other person is saying.
And it's also about being assertive, expressing your needs and opinions clearly and respectfully, while also being open to the other person's point of view. It's about finding that balance.
So it's about being both direct and respectful, speaking your truth while also honoring the other person's perspective.
Exactly. Now let's bring it all back to that core theme of thinking big. It all starts with our attitude, our mindset.
It's about choosing to see the world through a lens of possibility, even when things are tough.
He challenges us to become more aware of our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, to question our assumptions, to stretch our limits, and to believe in ourselves.
And most importantly, he reminds us that we're not alone on this journey. We have the power to support each other, to inspire each other, and to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to think big and make their dreams a reality. We're back wrapping up our deep dive into thinking big, and wow, there's a lot to unpack. One thing that keeps coming up is the importance of human connection. It's not just about individual achievement, it's about those relationships we build and how we work together.
Definitely. And Schwartz really emphasizes approaching those relationships with a positive mindset. Remember, thinking right towards people.
Oh yeah, that was a big one. So how do we actually put that into practice?
It starts with those simple things, be genuinely interested. Listen, be generous with praise. Make people feel important. It's those little things that build strong relationships.
It's about treating others with kindness and respect, even when it's hard.
Exactly. He also reminds us about forgiveness. Holding on to grudges doesn't do us any good.
It's true. Forgiveness is really more about freeing ourselves. But it's not always easy, is it?
No, it's not. It can be a real challenge, especially when we've been hurt. But ultimately, forgiveness is a gift we give
It
ourselves.
helps us let go of that negativity. Now, thinking back to some of the other key ideas I wanted to touch on, manage solitude. Again, I think that's such a powerful concept.
It is, and it's so relevant today with all the distractions we face.
Exactly. So for those who missed it, what is managed solitude all about?
It's about intentionally creating space for quiet reflection, disconnecting from all the noise, and giving our minds the freedom to wander.
It's like a mini vacation for your mind.
It is. Schwartz believes those moments of quiet contemplation are essential for creative thinking, problem solving, connecting with our inner wisdom.
But it's not about becoming a hermit.
No, not at all. It's about balance, making space for both connection and solitude.
It's about finding that sweet spot. Now, another challenge we all face is setting priorities. There's always so much to do. How do we decide what truly matters?
Schwartz is all about being strategic with our time. He suggests using a to-do list, ranking tasks in order of importance, and tackling the most crucial ones first.
So we can avoid getting bogged down in the less important stuff.
Exactly. Focus on what moves the needle. He also reminds us about the power of delegation, learning to let go of some control and entrust tasks to others.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Right. And remember, it's okay to say no. Sometimes you can't do everything.
Setting boundaries is crucial for our sanity and well-being.
Absolutely. Protect your time and energy. Make sure you're investing them wisely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
There's so much good stuff. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is this. Thinking big is a choice. It's a decision we make every day to approach life with optimism, courage, and a belief in ourselves.
It's about choosing to see possibilities instead of limitations.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual success. It's about using our thinking big mindset to make a positive impact on the world.
It's been an incredible journey exploring these ideas with you. I feel so inspired.
Me too. And I hope our listeners feel the same way.
Before we go, we always like to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question. So here it is. What's one small step you can take today to start thinking big in your own life? It doesn't have to be anything huge, just one small action to get you moving in the right direction.
Love it. Start small, stay consistent, and watch what happens.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into thinking big. We'll see you next time for another adventure in learning.